I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, Paul, but I just simply asked a simple question. Who would you rather play, the Bucks or the Nets? Where do you think that the listeners of this fine radio program went?
I would be shocked if it wasn't everyone wanted to play the Bucks. That would be my guess.
Can you believe that it was exactly 50-50? 50-50. I mean, is it because you're watching the Bucks kick the crap out of the Bucks, the Heat last night, or what? And I don't remember. It might have been you. I don't want to give you the credit or anybody the credit if you didn't say it. It might have been Mark Jackson who was on yesterday. Keith Smith was on yesterday, who said the one problem, like right now, Ben Simmons is dictating really the pace of the game because they don't have the size to defend Ben. And somebody mentioned the one team that does is the Bucks. They could put Giannis on Ben, and Ben might have problems one-on-one against this guy who's the same size. Can the Nets do that? Would they put Durant on Simmons?
See, my bigger concern wouldn't necessarily be that. It would more be Tobias Harris. And when you're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, they have three pretty good options to guard him, and we saw that in the matchups this year, whether it's Drew Holiday, whether it's Chris Middleton, or whether it's Giannis. All three of those guys are going to present serious issues for Tobias Harris because that's what's happening in this series. Not only is it Ben, but it's Tobias who, Rui Hachimura, I think he's a nice player. I think he's got a good future, but he's not physically strong enough to hang with the Tobias Harris right now. And I think, yes, Ben, but also Tobias. Yeah, I mean, from a defensive standpoint, Milwaukee definitely gives them the most trouble. And I give credit to the audience, man, because I think both of those teams are really tough to beat. And I think you can make an argument either way for not wanting to play either. I think kind of what we're talking about here. It's if you're looking at it from a defensive,
I don't yearn to play either if I don't have to.
Well, of course, of course. But you got to play somebody if you want to win the whole thing, right? But yeah, if you're looking at it from a defensive matchup standpoint, the Bucks they match up extremely well with the Sixers. Even with, listen, no one can stop Joel Embiid, but Brook Lopez is a solid big man to have, and then they're very good as a team defense to scheme up and double team and do all that. So that's a concern, and plus the other things I mentioned. But if you're looking at it against the Nets, that's obviously a nightmare offensive matchup when you have to go up against those two players. So I think both of those teams present kind of nightmare scenarios, but this is what, that's the way it goes. If you want to make it to the NBA Finals, you're going to have to play really good teams. So yeah, neither one's going to be a picnic. And I think the audience, I think that makes sense. It should be 50-50 because I can say, like I said, I can make solid arguments for both teams giving the Sixers a lot of trouble.
If you're Washington, you mentioned Hachimura. Would you try Gafford on Simmons? He's an athlete. He's an energizer guy. Would you say, look, see if you can stay in front of him and use your height?
No. I mean, I just – because then the problem is you got to play two centers. And if you're playing – you can't play Gafford as a small forward because then that's just going to – your offense is going to take a huge hit if you do that. And not only are you having trouble stopping the Sixers, it's not like they're exactly – lighting the Sixers up outside of Bradley Beal, and you're going to hurt your offense if you do that. I think in general, Daniel Gafford, I saw there was some stuff come out that, maybe he's not, he's battled some injuries and maybe he's not 100% conditioning wise. And that's why he's not getting as many minutes. But that's a guy that if I'm Scott Brooks, I'm trying to play him as much as I can because I think he gives you a little something, at least offensively with his ability to roll to the rim and catch lobs. But yeah, I don't know that there's just no good solution, I think, for the Wizards because I think the reason why Scott Brooks is going with that small guard lineup is that's the lineup that got them there. That's the lineup when they have played their best basketball. So when you're going to someone else, yes, you might increase the size, but you're hurting your lineup as a whole because you're not putting your best players out there. So I mean, I don't know. It's not a great solution, but maybe even like Bertans might be a little bit better because at least he's tall. He's not very good defensively, and he can hit an open three, which might help Russell Westbrook maybe stretch the floor a little bit. So I don't know where you go. I really don't. I just think, there's a reason why this is a 1-8 series, and the Sixers just have the better personnel, and their size differential is right now, that's the biggest thing that's killing the Wizards.
Paul Hudrick, 97.3 ESPN.com. What do we know about Curry for tomorrow?
So Doc Rivers said he did not practice today, but that he does expect him to play as of now. Same with Tobias Harris did practice today, but he also left that game, if you recall, with an ankle injury too. But he expects him to be good to go as well. Clearly, Curry's is a little bit more serious because he did not practice at all. But Doc sounded optimistic that both guys are going to play. I mean, this is the playoffs, so it is considered soreness. They're not calling it a sprain or anything like that. They are just calling it soreness. So we'll see going forward. We'll see how he looks. But as of now, it seems to be some optimism that he will be available for Game 3.
And if he's limited or not the same or doesn't play at all, what's the plan B? Do they go George Hill? Do you get Milton? Is Maxey in the lineup? I mean, that's an interesting one because one of the keys to a lot of this is the space that is provided because of Curry.
Right. I just think you see a whole lot more of George Hill. Clearly, that's the guy that Doc Rivers trusts. Out of all of his bench guys, George has played the most, and for good reason. So yeah, and I think he just slots in nicely. He's not the shooter Curry is, but he still is a pretty darn good one. And if anything, I mean, you could make an argument. I'm not saying this is definitely the case because they just haven't. Seth Curry clearly has the chemistry with these guys, and he's played with these guys all year. But you could make an argument that they are a more complete lineup, a 5-man lineup when it's George Hill over Seth Curry, because George Hill could do a little bit more off the bounce and is clearly a better defender. So in a weird way,
people forget too, Paul, that Hill led the NBA in shooting the 3 last year.
Right, but I hear you, and he's a very good shooter. I don't want to take anything away from him, but when you look at volume and you look at all, like Seth Curry is, he's a better shooter. And that's not taking anything away from George, because like I said, he is still very, very good, hovering around 40% for his career. So you're not losing much when you're putting him in instead of Curry, and you're gaining the ball handling and you're gaining the defense. So I don't think it would hurt the Sixers that much. I still would expect them to win the game, and I still would expect them to have all of the advantages they had before. To your other points, yeah, maybe this would mean more Tyrese Maxey because you'd have more Hill with the starters. Or maybe Shake Milton does get another look, another opportunity to maybe step up and prove himself to Doc. Because right now, it's pretty clear that Maxey is earning those minutes above Milton.
Yeah, Paul Hudrick's with us tomorrow night, game number 3. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 7 p.m. Monday, Memorial Day. It is a 7 o'clock start. And we just got news today that if it goes to game 5, Paul, that will be a full house, correct?
That is correct. 100% capacity if it goes to game 5.
And that means if it goes to game 5, 100%, or game 1 of round number 2. So the rest of the way, Sixers home games are going to be sell-out crowds. You can bet on that. I mean, the city has lifted the restrictions. They will be sold out every single night, which obviously adds. I mean, you have been in the building with how many fans have been in there?
Roughly 11,000. I think it's been a little over 11,000.
And the atmosphere has been good, but not quite the same.
It's been crazy. Well, it's funny because not only compare it to what we've been at all year long with, little to literally no fans, starting at the beginning of the season. And it's a world of difference. And I'm sure the players are feeling it. I mean, Joel Embiid, he's been a guy who's always admitted that he feeds off the crowd, and you see it. He loves every second of it. He eats it up. And even, a guy like Ben Simmons, I think, gets a little bit more charged up with the crowd, whether it's positive or negative. It makes a difference. You feel the energy in the building 100% from my perspective, and I'm sure the players do too. And that's not just the Sixers, but I'm sure the opponents. I'm sure the Wizards have been feeling it. You saw Bradley Beal kind of have some back and forth with fans already. We won't get into the whole Westbrook thing for that idiot who threw the popcorn, but in general, clearly opponents feel that pressure. Some thrive in it and some don't.
Yeah, I know that it's a big thing for the Sixers. They're one of the best home teams in basketball, and to now be back at full capacity, they're going to need that come round 2, and of course in the Eastern Conference Finals. One of the things too that I wanted to ask you about Harris. Any lingering effects from that ankle? Did anybody ask him? Because he did come back into the game from Wednesday night. Any lingering effects from that? Did they keep him out of practice at all today?
No, like I said, he participated in parts of practice, according to Doc Rivers. So But he seemed to think that it was Kerry was definitely more on this like I don't want to say serious, but his was a little bit more serious than Tobias's. It seems like Tobias, there's no real worries, and he's going to play game 3, and we'll see if there's anything later in. But yeah, we're not going to know until he steps out there, obviously.
All right, over at 97.3 ESPN.com, Paul Hudrick writes that Simmons' Game 2 performance wasn't better, it was just different. And it's something I've talked about a lot, is Game 1, he generated 48 points. In Game 2, now he played 9 less minutes, but even if he played the 9 minutes, he'd probably be right around 48 to 50. He generated about the same amount of points in both the games. So he wasn't better or worse in either game, as you wrote. He was just different.
Right, and it's just so funny, all the hand-wringing over, and I see a lot of people say it, and some people that, quite frankly, I think are pretty smart, and to have this opinion I think is weird, is they say, like, oh, well, Ben Simmons was so much better in Game 2. He just needs to do that all the time. It's like, it's not that. It's a simple contrast of what the defense gave them. In Game 1, Tobias Harris scored 37 points. You're telling me you wanted Tobias Harris to stop scoring so Ben Simmons could? And then Joel Embiid gets in foul trouble in the first half, but he comes in the second half and he ends up with 30. They scored 125 points. And it was because Ben Simmons had 15 assists. Like, he was doing his job in that regard. Game 2, credit to Ben Simmons and credit to Joel Embiid, who said to Ben Simmons, hey, they're going to play me differerly. You're going to need to be more aggressive. And that's exactly what he was in Game 2. They knew that they weren't going to allow Joel Embiid to catch the ball in comfortable spots. They knew that Tobias Harris, they were going to be keying on him because he scored 37 points, because he kind of got to the basket at will. So they knew that there were going to be one-on-one opportunities for Ben Simmons, and he needed to take advantage of them. And he talked about it after the game. He said he would dribble up the court, and he could already tell that they were falling asleep on him, ready for him to make a pass. And he just blew by guys. There were at least 3 drives like that where he finished at the rim. So it's not a matter of, oh, he was so much better. No, he was just looking to score because that's what presented itself. It's just it's not any more complicated than that, Mike. He's reading the game and seeing it and forming his game to what the team needs.
I can see it now. Sixers sweep Lakers. Simmons scores 2 in win, and people going nuts that he only scored 2 points in the game they win. Paul Hudrick has the Sixers covered, and of course you can listen to the Sixers and Wizards right here on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage at 7 o'clock, both Saturday night and Monday night for a sweep. If they can get that, we'll see. And, of course, both games in D.C. A Game 5, as we mentioned, here in Philly would be a full-capacity crowd. And Paul Hudrick, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Follow him at Paul Hudrick for more on this Sixers-Wizards series. All right, Paul, have a great weekend, man.
You as well, Mike. Thanks, man.
Good to see him, as always, here on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, here on the Sports Bash. And go check out his piece on Ben Simmons, where he writes, he wasn't better. He was just different.